well, this is true with the mothers, you know, because they're.
Can you tell it? Because we don't know. I have.
Oh,
no idea.
okay. Yeah, no, I heard stories from the elderly ladies in Chinatown, how when their children volunteered to join the army and fight the war, and they just couldn't stand it because they realized that here they raise their own children, and the war comes along, and it's like there's a possibility they're going to lose their children forever. And they would certainly would cry over this, and I think it'd be like any other mother, you know, that would cry over this. And I think even more importantly was that the Chinese were doing it. Like here, you know, before the war, they were facing the Chinese Exclusion Act, the head tax. You couldn't get a job with the government. You were restricted to owning property. There were all these discriminatory steps that really was an obstacle to live a full life in Canada. And yet you have these young adults volunteer to fight for Canada. And the parents would be really upset with that decision because they say, my God, you know, what are these kids doing? You know, why are they going to take risk their lives fighting for a country that doesn't want us to begin with? And so they agonize over that. And it's true, because if you were in that situation and you had raised these children, and then all of a sudden they decide they're going to go fight the war, and you're thinking, my God, there's that possibility I could lose them forever. And it's a frightening situation that the parents have to face. And more so because it's for a country that didn't want them to begin with. And so for a parent, that is a very hard thing to accept, because they were so used to all these discriminatory steps, and yet their young children would dare to volunteer to join the army and fight for Canada. Why would they fight for a country that doesn't want them? So there's your conflict right there. And yet the young one would say, well, it's because we hope that we can become proper Canadian citizen. So in a sense, they were thinking along those lines of saying, we have to stop being treated as a second-class citizen. And they were quite determined that once they fight for Canada, they would come back and become first-class citizen. And as it turned out, they did. And much more rewarding is that they were able now to join certain professional societies, which was previously barred to them. So they were able to work at a real job, make real money, and provide a future for themselves and for their own family and their own children. So the breakthrough was not necessarily the right to vote and become a Canadian citizen. It was also in terms of economics, in that you were able to provide for a future